Okay, so we'll start. Hi, everybody. My name is Jérôme Bouchard. I'm a Fab manager at the Fab Lab Fabule. I'm going to already start sharing my screen. Here it is, whiteboard here. I would have liked to share my entire screen because I would have liked to switch between Inkscape and my presentation, but it looks like that Zoom doesn't want me to do so. So I might switch sometimes. The Fab Lab Fabule is located here. Do you see the map? Nope.
Yes.
Okay. Feel free to send comments if I'm speaking too fast or if I'm using some words that aren't English. I'll try to explain it otherwise. So Montreal is here, and Rivière-du-Loup, we are here. In fact, I am not currently in Rivière-du-Loup. I'm at home here in Saint-André-de-Kamouraska. Oh, we can go further. I am here. And that's an antique agricultural silo. We call it the Mordor right there. So you might have fun. Okay. So I'm an industrial designer. I went to the University of Montreal. I did a lot of consulting and so on. I have also a degree in graphic arts. It's at the college, a community college in Rivière-du-Loup. So I am a graphic artist and an industrial designer. So as a graphic artist, I've learned Adobe Illustrator. It's every graphic artist will sell his mother for Adobe Illustrator. For them, it's the ultimate software. It's the best thing they have ever seen. I was thinking like them, to tell the truth. But since I began doing less and less graphic arts, and since I decided to switch to Linux, I didn't have the choice. Illustrator does not exist to Linux, so I switched to Inkscape. I often do the comparison because people who are used to another software, when they come to Inkscape, they say, it doesn't work as well, and so on. The comparison I'm doing is that it's the same time when you use new underwears, you don't feel as well as in your old underwears. But with time, you'll get used to that. And now I can say that seriously, I think Inkscape is much more better than those proprietary software. It's free. It uses less resources from the computer. So for me, it's the best deal for the Fab Labs. I'll get further in that idea during my presentation. So this is not a course. I will present you some features. Oops, sorry, there are two people waiting for. There's admitted. Yeah. Okay. I will present less known feature, but I will not teach you how to use them. If you want, maybe you can, when I'll have done my presentation, you can ask questions. Maybe I can help you with some specific details. But usually the infos you'll find on the internet is very detailed. So for me, Inkscape is the Fab Lab's cornerstone. When somebody gets in, well, first they come for a 3D printer, but after a few minutes, they learn that it takes often hours to get the results. So I do a demonstration of the laser cutter, and then for them, it's the big machine that they want to learn and that they want to use. So in order for them to use the laser cutter, I tell them, bon, you have to provide a vector drawing. You can do that in AutoCAD if you want. Never happened. In Adobe Illustrator, it happened often because we are in Rivière-du-Loup, so there's a graphic arts course, and for them it's easy, so they come with Adobe Illustrator. As I said, Inkscape is compatible with GNU Linux, so it's a very nice feature on my side. You can install it everywhere on almost all machines. I even found one day, I think, a browser-based version. I'm not sure. I should look, but there's a lot of version that you can install almost anywhere. And Inkscape unlocks the following machine. Of course, the laser cutter, but also the CNC milling. If you want to do what we call 2.5 milling, so it means that you're using a 2D drawing and you're specifying heights for the tool to cut. Of course, you won't be able to do complex curve in 3 axis, but it does the job very often. Inkscape is also used for the embroidery machine and for the vinyl cutter. And finally, it's useful for graphic arts. So when I have a newbie, I tell them, okay, you'll learn that software. Yes, there is a learning curve, but afterward, it will serve you in your everyday life. You want to do a poster, you want to do some kind of graphics. When you will have tasted Inkscape, you won't try to do it again in Windows Paint or something like that. About my schematic, that I did that schematic for to explain to the newcomers how their idea will be converted from neurons to atoms. So here is their idea. The first step is design software. They need to convert what they have in their mind, which is often blurry, to a more detailed drawing, 2D drawing, 3D drawing, schematics for circuits, or they need to do programmation. Here, Inkscape takes all those parts. You can see that's quite huge. And even if you want to do circuit board design, you can do it also in Inkscape. It's feasible. It's not the best process, but it's feasible. Afterward, we need to pre-process the file. So from here, which is quite international, we can share it anywhere and everybody will be able to open it, to here, which is much more specialized depending on the equipment that the Fab Lab uses and so on. And here, but that's the machine. As you can see, that machine, that machine, that machine, that machine here, all can be operated via Inkscape. So it's a cornerstone. If you want, I published that schematic in Creative Commons, so you can download it from here. Feel free to modify it to suit your own Fab Lab design paradigm. Inkscape works natively in SVG. Okay. In fact, when we look a bit further to it, Inkscape is somehow a text editor, because you enter commands and it converts it to a text file, which is a SVG. When you all have some time, just for the fun, remove the extension, remove the .svg of an Inkscape file and replace it by txt and open it in a text editor. You'll see, oops, sorry, there's again somebody who wants to get in. You'll see the detail of the drawing. You'll see some kind of the markup language. And if you want, you can draw directly from there. It will be a bit pain, but it's visible. And in some time, you can also debug some, you have a drawing that doesn't work as you would expect, but you can get there just to see what's wrong. And it's a nice way to understand that. Good Fab habits. Okay, that's when a graphic designer use a vector drawing software, they have some kind of habits that they need to do. They create compound paths. They create. They add a lot of layers. They do some clipping, some mask, and so on. In a Fab Lab, it's of no use. So usually, I push the user just to say, "Hey, gang, it won't make your design better. It will just make it cumbersome, and you might have difficulties printing it or laser cutting it afterward." So usually I suggest the users to keep it as simple as possible. So layers are not very useful. You might have just one, two, or even no. The mask, the clips also, it's of no use. And on the Trotec laser cutter, it's almost an issue. The Inkscape have path effects. If you don't convert them, you might have issues. Don't use transparencies, gradients, of course, it will be an issue also. And well, again, about clips and masks, don't do that. Preferably in operation, do a subtraction to modify your shapes and so on. So I'll begin with the vanilla features, the features for which you don't have to install anything in your software. And there is a lot of them, and I was a bit amazed because when I proposed that workshop, I did some research and I found many features that were there and that I wasn't using. And from now on, because I prepared this, I'm beginning using it. The first one, which I truly like, and it's quite easy, it's in document properties, resize page to content. Usually when you use a laser cutter, you want to have the document as small as possible. Just have a small margin all around 1 millimeters, 2 millimeters, and that's it. And you might calculate to create it, but you don't have to do so. You enter the margins you want here, and you click resize page to drawing or selection, and the job is done. That's easy. Outline display mode. In fact, it's of no use. Just wait a moment. I'm going to share share screen here just for your fun. Share. Okay. It's a new feature, I think. So view, split mode, up. And from now on, here you have an outline preview. And here you have a normal preview. Might be useful to find some lines that aren't well shown or so on. Because it will happen often with the newcomers that they will have sorry, I have a transparency. I tell you not to do that, and I have one. They will do some kind of fill and stroke. No stroke, up. And from there, they think, oh, there's nothing there. If you don't see it, it doesn't exist, but you might have issues afterward, and they might do some kind of select all, add a stroke everywhere, and their perfect design will cut, and at 1 minute, it will schlock. The laser cutter would go through because there was a small path that you didn't see, but that was having a stroke, and that cut through everything. So usually to compensate, we do display mode outline, and now we see the sin. I'm going to display mode normal. Okay, so new share. I'm going back to share. So it was for the outline display mode. The other one is quite easy. It's the round corners. It's a vanilla feature. Many of you might know it. When you make a square, in the upper corner, you have those round circles. You pull them and you'll get round corners. That's very interesting. You can do that with the rectangles and polygons tools. So it's useful. There's another way to do that. You have a path effect and a dynamic offset. Dynamic offset is not my preferred choice. I won't discuss it, but path effect, I can show it to you if you want. It might be a solution for new share, Inkscape, share. Okay, so I throw it away. I'll do something very easy. Yep. No. And nope. No. So now I have a path, and I can get here to go to path effects. I can add a path effects, and I can round corners. The first will find it easy up, and I can add a round corner. I'll give it millimeters and a radius of, let's say, 6. Oh, a lot more. Tap. Up. So you see, I have round corners. Those round corners are only a kind of filters applied to my path. So if I'm going back to display mode, outline, oh, you see them. Usually it might not do that, and you might have a line. So the round corners is still parametric. You can modify it and so on. If you want, you can do paste path effect, if I'm not wrong, or just path object to path. From now on, you don't have any path effect, so it's like the drawing is was made like that. I suggest you to do that only at the end when you are ready to launch the your model. But so it was about the round corners. The deep ungroup, that's a very nice feature. You can group objects. I'll go again. No, sorry. Okay, I'll just tell you, you go to menu extension, arrange, deep ungroup. What it means is that when you create drawings, shapes, you can group them, and it's quite useful because when you click on one of them, you select all of them and you can move them without modifying their relative distance and so on. But in many cases, you will have to ungroup them. And when you grouped and you grouped and you grouped, you do have a lot of ungrouped operation to do to make sure that everything is ungrouped. Let's say if you want to do a Boolean operation, add two features together and fusion them, you'll need to do a deep ungroup. So that's menu extension, arrange, and deep ungroup. If you want afterward, just ask and I'll show them more in detail. Okay, that one, again, it's a vanilla feature. It's export to plotter or vinyl cutter. So as I understand it, for some machines, you can export directly between Inkscape to the vinyl cutter. If I go back, I'll explain myself. Okay, here, usually you see you have your drawing software and you have your machine. And in between, there's usually another software, which is called Cost Studio or Trotec Job Control or Inkstitch or so on. And those softwares, you send your SVG to that software, which creates the instruction for the machines. I do the more I can to eliminate those machines. Why? That's because it's quite difficult for a newbie. He came, he learned a 2D drawing, and just after, when his drawing is ready and he thinks he get nothing more to do, you said, oh no, you'll have to learn another software to be able to launch it to your machine. But what I've learned is that in some cases, you can avoid that second software and send the file directly or create the file directly from your vector drawing software to the machine. So it eliminates a step, and on my point of view, it makes it easier for newcomers. And that's what I want to do. Deep ungroup, export to plotter, vinyl cutter, that's what it does. Vanilla feature, okay. When you are laser cutting, if you do a project just one time, you won't bother about it. But did you remark that in some cases, but let's say you have 9 circles that, or those 16 squares you want to cut, and the machine will start here, will cut here, and then would go down, would cut that one, come here, then it doesn't seem to follow any logic. In fact, the logic that it follows is that the order in which you created them. But because you are in a design process, you didn't take care of making the shapes in the right order. You can manually go in the objects layer, and you have your objects here, and just rearrange them, pull, drag and drop them the one over the other. You'll modify that way the order, and it will modify the way that the CNC machines, or but the CNC machines is not the same case, or the laser cutter will do the order. it's an issue with the laser cutter and with the embroidery software. The embroidery software will also do the same thing. It will do each shape in the order where it has been drawn. So you can modify it by hand, but there's a nice feature for that. It's called extension, arrange, restack, and it's restacking the order of the shapes. Um, you there is a learning curve to use that extension. I didn't went further, but I saw that there are some parameters that you should enter. Another one, extension render barcode. You want to build barcode, you can do that right from Inkscape. So yes, there is a lot of websites or freewares that you can use to create barcodes, but you can do it right from inside Inkscape. So usually when you create a barcode, you want to place it on a label or on a design, so it will skip the step of going there and coming back. I had some issues. All the first numbers here of a barcode are the true number of the barcode. That one, let's say, is kind of the supplier. The other is the product number. And the third one is, the last one here, the 3, is a checksum. So the software does a kind of a mathematical operation to create the 3. And it's a way to validate that everything is right. When you enter your barcode data, don't enter the third one, the last digit, even if you know it, because it won't work. And if you don't enter it, the machine will calculate it for you. The use in a Fab Lab, there's a lot people like to hack with the laser scanner, or you might want to help people find easily the prices of things. You can do a QR codes also, if I'm not wrong. The kerf, okay. For those who are not used to that, when you use a table saw, the blade of the table saw has a specific thickness. Usually it's around 3 millimeters. And that when you will cut your piece of wood, you will lose some material. That's what a saw does. People don't realize, but a laser, we own a Trotec Speedy 300, and on a laser cutter, the laser removes 0.3 millimeters. So 0.15 on one side and 0.15 on the other. Usually, you don't bother with that because give some kind of clearance and so on. But in some cases, you will want to have a precise control on the curve. So you will want to compensate on one side or the other. As I told you, if I draw a 10 millimeter square by onscut, and if I use a caliper to measure it, I will have 9.70. So that's the 0.3 that I've lost. You have many options to manage the curve. First, you might not have to care. So if it doesn't seem to be an issue for the user, don't care about it. But you can also do menu, path, dynamic offset. It offsets the path from one side to the other. So from there, you'll be able to make it a bit shorter, because on Scott, it will be a bit thicker. So it's a way to compensate. You have dynamic offset, path offset. You also have extensions that you can install. There's Inkscape Curve Adjuster. It's beta. You'll find it on GitHub. There is also Inkscape Add Curve on GitHub. And I'll talk a bit later about Tabbed Box Maker, which is one of my favorite extension. And they have a setting for managing curved in that extension. And also I found a script, Inkscape Curve Correct. I never tried it. Usually I control the curve manually, or just by offsetting using the dynamic offset to offset it. For your info, for those who are using Fusion 360 and are exporting SVG drawing to Inkscape for laser cutting, let's say, there's an extension also which you can install to compensate for the curve, to manage the curve. Okay, another vanilla feature is the cardboard box. So it's very easy. Extension, render, foldable box. So you insert dimensions, pop, 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 pop. You click apply, and you get a box with all the tabs that will help you to fold it properly. It's a very professional die cut. Of course, there is a lot of websites from where you can download those models, and often they are parametric, so you can create them from there. Yes, but my point is saying that the less you go from one software to the other, the easier it will be for the newcomer. Of course, if you're using to if you're used to use that kind of specialized website, still go with it. But with newcomers, the idea is to make the learning curve easier. Gears. There's an extension also. It's a vanilla extension render gears, and it does better than PathFX. I think that on PathFX there is also a gear feature, so you have two ways to do that. Vanilla feature again, extension render triangle. Okay, you'll say yes, but you just have to do three nodes and you'll have a triangle, of course. But in some cases, you'll want to have a precise angle or so on. You could do the trigonometry work. If you do so, great. I'm proud of you. You did learn your math at high school. But that extension does all the job for you. So you enter the parameters you want, and it will create the triangle according to those parameters. So for having worked on creating some kind of precise angles, I found it very useful. GCode tools. Another one that I don't master, but again, for me, it's a way to eliminate a software in between. So yes, you can produce GCode with Inkscape. There are some extensions. If you Google GCode tools, you'll find the instructions and so on. And once your GCode is produced, you can send it right to your machine. So again, if I'm going here, we do own our CNC is Shapeoko. So we are using Carbide Create to produce the GCode, and Carbide Motion to send it to the milling machine. But as you can see, it will be great. So from here, I'll have my GCode and I'll just launch it to Carbide Motion without going through Carbide Create. And it's not there. I think it was on purpose that I removed it. Okay, it looks like 2D. 2-point Carbide Motion. GCode tools. Why? That's why I removed Carbide Create to make the schematic easier. So that's for GCode tools. The path effects, those features are very interesting. Okay, you have that feature is quite common in ellipse by 3 points. It's very common in software like AutoCAD, SolidWorks, Fusion 360, Solid Edge, and so on. So usually you enter 3 points and poof, you have a circle made out of them. There is a feature, I'm going to demonstrate them. There is angle bisector and measure segment. Okay. So if I'm going back to Inkscape, I'm here. So just to show you, I'm creating 3 point, poof, poof, poof. I don't even have to close the shape. I'm going to path effects, and in path effects, there's a lot of effects there. Many of them are very useful. And in path effect, you have, where is it? I think it's experimental. Well, there is a switch here. If they don't trust it's still beta, you'll have some experimental feature. And line segment, circle by 3 points, puff. From now, oh, sorry, up. I'll just do I have my shapes here. I'm doing edit, duplicate. So if I move my, you see there are two shapes, so it will make it easier for you to understand what is going on. I'm doing circle by 3 points, and I have my 3 points, and the circle goes through that. Of course, in CAD software, it's easier to do that what I did, but it does the job, and that's very nice. It makes it easier. Again, about the angle. So up, I'm doing a copy, and I can add in PathFX. It's experimental. Measure segments. Yeah, I don't see it. Ah, so I have an angle, pack, I add that, and it creates another path in which my angle is split in two. So that one also is very useful. I'm going back to my PowerPoint, my slides, sorry. And also there is the path effect, as you saw, it's the same process. You can add measure segments from, you select a segment and you click add dimension. That one is very, very useful to communicate or just to validate some dimensions. It's still parametric when you do that. So if you afterward you take a node and you move it, the effect will adapt itself as in common CAD software. So you won't have to reapply the effect. It will still be parametric. So that's, on my point of view, very useful on a maker point of view. Those one are not experimental. Knots here. You do a spline and you add the feature knot, and it cuts the spline to create a kind of knot. I think it might be useful for the kilting ones amongst you. It's funny. I don't know if I will use it, but I found it very interesting. And the feature ruler, it's very easy. You add, you give it a path, and you set you give the parameter of the number of the segment you want, and it creates a ruler or a dial and so on. So it's also useful for machines and so on. Inkstitch. Now, we've bought an embroidery machine which costs around $4,000. It was a nice one which can do very huge embroideries. And afterward, we've learned that we should buy another software which was around the same price of the machine, just to precisely control the embroidery. We've bought some kind of cheap software which was called Premiere ACQ. And it's very interesting because it's dumb proof. You give it SVG and poof, you'll have your embroidery programmed. But you won't have any control on the fine details. The software does what it wants to do, and afterwards you accept it like it is, or you do somewhere else. And by the time we've bought that software, Inkstitch wasn't as well developed as it is currently, and the new versions of that plugin are very interesting. It's used to create your path. There is a learning curve. You'll have to, there is a lot of tutorials on how to use it, but Inkstitch is a very, very, very nice software. And as I said again, it removes the in-between software. So you'll go straight from Inkscape to your embroidery machine without having to save as and so on. So for me, Inkstitch is a must go. Extension boxes. There are many of those extensions. I prefer Tab the Box Maker because you have a fine control on menu parameters. As I told you, you can control the kerf. Oops, I'll take the question afterward. You can control the kerf. You can have even add the device inside. So that's very interesting. I like Tab the Box Maker. I found quick joint. I don't remember, but that was useful. I think it was just to create one finger joint somewhere. And the elliptical box maker, which does flexible joint. So that's an interesting feature. Flexible joint, living hinges, sorry. So there is also specialized extension. There is living hinges creator, Inkscape living hinge, and so on. So you'll have to do a search. I didn't try them. For Tabbed Box Maker, I'm used to it. For those, I don't know. There is also an extension called Knob Scale Generator. You saw here the ruler function. It's quite powerful, but that one is much more powerful. So it will make your design task easier. Pyscript, okay. On my point of view, Inkscape have two main defects is that it's not parametric, and I would like to have constraint as in the sketches of Adobe Illustrator or Fusion 360. You take two lines and you say, okay, those lines, keep them constrained, and the line keep them parallel, and the line would modify themselves to stay parallel, perpendicular, or you can force a line to have a specific length. I saw on the forums that some people asked for that feature, but I think it's a lot of work on the Inkscape development team. And as I understand it, they try to keep the software, the SVG, the real resulting SVG file as vanilla as possible, as close to the standard, the SVG standard, because SVG is an open format. So adding a constraint will need to bypass somehow. I think it could be done by just adding the constraint in a specific kind of a comment, but that's a lot of work. So forget about the constraints, but you do have some ways to do parametric design using Python. That's an extension that is called Pyscript, and from there you'll have Python, and you can control any of the shapes using Python. So it will be useful. Let's say if you have a lot of boxes you want to automatically create, you can do that using that. If you, let's say you do, it happens often with kitchen, I don't know how to call it, in the kitchen, the boxes you have in where you put your plates. Often you have to adapt the length when you design those kitchens. An extension such as Pyscript might help you. It's a lot of work, but using that extension, you will be also to do some kind of drawings that won't be feasible by hand. So it's interesting for that. There's a nesting software. Unfortunately, I didn't find a nesting software that is an extension for Inkscape. What is nesting is that you have a lot of shapes to cut, and you want to optimize your material to use as few material as possible. It's common in the printing industry, and it's common also in the laser cutting industry for sheet metal and so on. So I didn't find any nesting software for a plugin for Inkscape, but I found two things. That's a website that is called SVG Nest. So you can give it your SVGs, and it will do iteration until it finds some kind of useful way to use as much material as possible. And SVG Nest is a kind of standalone, if I'm not wrong, which you can install on your software. That's a third-party software, yep, but at least it's open source, so we like that. Issues. Okay. For those who work with those damn graphic artists, they will come and they will say, Inkscape doesn't work well. I've did my design in Adobe Illustrator. I imported to Inkscape. It doesn't work. The scale is wrong. The preview is wrong and so on. To be honest, most of the time, it's Adobe software who are not using the playing the right game according to the SVG standard. So Adobe's are doing what they want to do, and we accuse the smallest one, Inkscape, of doing strange things, but the wrong job was done in Adobe Illustrator before. Oops, there's a typo here. So when you want to export a file from Adobe Illustrator to Inkscape, what you'll do is the worst thing to do is go to Adobe Illustrator, save as SVG. You can do it, but it will be a pain. It won't work. So from Adobe Illustrator, you'll do File, Export, Export as, and in the invite, you'll don't check the minifier and responsive boxes. So from there, you'll have the right, the SVG will be at the right scale. Also, everybody knows that the auto trace bitmap. People come to a Fab Lab, they want to have a vector drawing, they see there's a learning curve, they want to have a result as fast as possible. And you show them. When I went to school, we were placing a bitmap image in the on our document, and we were tracing it using the Bezier curve to recreate the shape properly. And we did that during 6 months to master the Bezier curves. People don't want to do that, so is there a way to do it automatically and so on? Yes, there is a way to do it. In Inkscape, you'll have a filter, trace bitmap or something like that. To be honest, don't use that. Okay, it works well if you enter the good parameters, but mastering those parameters, it's a work, and even if you do so, the user won't understand the process. So I say you can use it if you're master enough the Inkscape software, but using it just to have a more easier process and telling to a newcomer to use it, I think it's a caveat. Usually I say to the newcomers who heard about that feature, you think it's a shortcut, but your shortcut is passing through a swamp. So in the swamp, you lose your boots in the mud, and after that, who's going to be who's going to have to fetch you there? It's gonna be the Fab manager, because you want your user to at least have a result and not going frustrated from the Fab Lab because he lost 3 hours doing a design and he can't cut it properly. Also, another issue, imports from Adobe Illustrator. It happens very often that Illustrator is creating a lot of mask and clipping path and so on. That's a true pain currently. I don't know why that software is doing that, but you'll have to revert. For job control, it's always an issue. Mask and clipping path, it's always an issue. So you'll have to go, as I show you outline preview mode, you go to outline and you'll see those green boxes, and you'll have to revert engineer to find which shape is masked and be able to undo it. I saw it very often with new students in graphic arts because they did their job in Adobe Illustrator and they didn't properly knew what they did, what they do. So they export it as is, and afterward you found that they've tried a lot of things before exporting it, and there was a lot of defects in that. So that's a pain also. So that's it for my presentation. Now I see there's some comments and questions. I'm going to read them with you, try to answer them, and maybe we can discuss afterward just for the pleasure. If you want to discuss right now, you can unmute also. Michael Perrier wrote, amen to Inkscape. I truly agree to you. For me, it's a revelation. And in fact, I'm even pushing against the school telling to the graphic arts student, you don't truly need Adobe Illustrator, and you don't truly need proprietary software. Open source can do it from one part to the end, and it will do the job. But they still and they buy Macintosh and so on. Let's connect to LinkedIn. We might do. I'm a big Inkscape fan. I saw. What? That is so cool. I didn't know we could do barcodes in Inkscape. In fact, maybe 2 months before today, I didn't knew that also, but I already use it. I'm a volunteer in a small convenient store here, and we use it to create barcodes to simplify the job at the POS, point of sale software. I'm actually mind blown with this. Oh, thanks. I had issue with Inkstitch. We use Stitch Era. Okay, I don't know. It's really great, but you have to pay for it. Okay, about Inkstitch. When I first tried it, it was 2 years before, maybe in 2019 or 2020. It was much more difficult. The last version of Inkstitch are very powerful, are very easier, and there's a nice preview and so on. So for those who were disappointed with Inkstitch, try it again. Have you had problem with the direction of the stitching with Inkstitch? Unfortunately, not enough. I can't answer to your question. Thanks. You can't open my mic now, but I would love to see CMYK key tools for Inkscape. Yeah, that's requested since a very long time. And I think people at Inkscape are truly aware of that because it's requested by a lot of people. For those who doesn't know, is that Inkscape use RGB colors as your screen do, and all its color management is doing RGB. But people in the printing industry tends to prefer CMYK because traditionally it was said it creates a preview that is more nearer to the true color you'll get unsprinted. I've thought like that because I'm a graphic designer, but now I think that very often we don't go to 4-color offset process. We do use instead laser printers or some kind of press that doesn't use a true CMYK process. And as I understand it, when you convert your file to CMYK, you lose some colors because it tries to match the CMYK color profile. And the longer you stay in RGB and the more you can stay in RGB, the better you'll have at the end the color, because in some cases the press is much more powerful than the CMYK traditional process by offset press. I want, in French we say jurer. I won't say it's true on the honor of my grandmother, but I think so. Inkscape can import a JPEG, but not export. Yup. Yes, you can't export a JPEG. You'll have to do, usually I have to use fine. You mean GIMP, GIMP. It's the Inkscape does vector drawings. It uses lines and so on. And GIMP does bitmap drawings. So it's a grid with pixels. I don't know why they omit JPEG export. An hypothesis is that JPEG usually is powerful for photos, for images that have a lot of colors, a lot of that there are no shapes in that. But because you are in Inkscape, you usually do shapes. So PNG is much more efficient about the compression and the quality of the image. That's an hypothesis. Maybe if somebody search, I won't be surprised that there is an extension to convert directly from to JPEG from Inkscape. Can you show an example using Boolean operation of instead of using clip, and why is that an advantage? Yep. Okay, I'll show you. Boom, 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 boom. Share screen here. Inkscape. Share. Okay. You will understand. That's very okay. Let's say I'm doing that. Okay, I'm doing another one with the. I'll add some corners. Pew up, poof. Oh, and then I'm not very used to clips, but from them, let's say I just want to have what inside that rectangle. So I can select everything. If I'm not wrong, I don't do that often. So, and I can do a mask. Is it? Nope.
Yeah, I think the clip set would do it.
The clip.
And
Okay,
then set.
set. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I might be
I've
in.
never done it with that many. I've usually done it like the clip over a
Only shape,
single image.
only one shape, huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, say if I have a picture and I just want a face, I'll go in there and I'll clip
Oh
the
yes, for
face.
bitmap picture, that's the solution. Yes, I agree. I was saying about vector drawings because some people might be tempted to clip an image to clip a shape, and that's not a good idea. I'm going to just add some fill and stroke, fill, pack, poof, and view display mode normal. Okay. Let's say I want that shape to be smaller, but it will be truly stupid because I just have to scale it using those tools here and here if I want to do that. But let's say you want to have a much more complicated shape. Usually you will want to truly modify the shape itself. So I'll take those two and I'll get there and I do a difference. You want to have the shape that is the more simple, the less feature in it. If you don't have issue with your laser cutter, maybe it is less capricious than ours. Maybe it's not a trouble, but on the side of the Fab Lab for vector drawings, I don't use clips, I don't use masks. If you have a bitmap drawing and you want to clip it, yes, I think it's useful. Usually, I don't even say to newcomers that they can use a bitmap. Because of that, they will try to use the bitmap as a cutting path and so on. So I try to keep them the long as I can in the in the vector side of the force. I use paint.net to convert PNG to JPEG. It's an extra step, but the software is free. Yes, you could do that also with Inkscape, but I won't truly. I think I don't see why there's not an extension for that. I have to go now. Great presentation, Jerome. Thank you. My pleasure also. Thank you. Does anyone wants to share or have something more? Maybe you have more tricks. Go ahead. Nope. That's okay.
It was news to me about both the barcode and then you also mentioned a QR code. Have you actually so could you actually take an image and create a QR code from that? Say if you wanted to use it in a enhanced reality type application, something like that.
Oh, nice question. I don't know. In fact, I think that we can do a QR, but I'm not. I'm going to go to that's render barcode. Oh, wait, there's QR code. Yes.
It's right in there. Okay. Well, I guess we can
Yes.
play with it.
And there's a lot of parameters. It's you have character encoding, invert QR code, drawing type, smooth square value. Yes, there's a lot of parameters. I found it very interesting that those features are vanilla. You don't have to install anything, and it goes. It works right out of the box. For the few that I had to add, it was Inkstitch mainly. Tab the Box Maker, I truly love it, so I have added it in all our Fab Lab computers, but it's mainly it. Yes. The main lack for Inkscape, on my point of view, is the constraints. I will truly like that to have that feature. There are some open source software like Solve Space that have constraints, but I think there's still a lot of work to do. Pete to everyone.
You're using.
Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
You're just. I mean, I also use the Fusion 360, and I found the constraints to be very powerful in that environment. But you're saying it's just kind of an issue in Inkscape because it would prevent other things from creating a. I think you called it kind of a more pure SVG file. Was that the main thing?
That's my hypothesis. On my side, I think adding that feature might also, it's very useful to makers, but graphic artists don't know that they need it because they are stuck in in Adobe Illustrator, and there is not that feature in Adobe Illustrator. But adding that feature to Inkscape, on my point of view, will truly give a true advantage to Inkscape, even as a graphic arts software, because you always have to do some tricks to keep your shape. And if you use Fusion 360, you know what I mean. In fact, you define the parameters, you know that one changes are very important, and then you work on your shape until you get the shape you want. So okay, if you have to export a DXF from a CAD program, you may want to use path combine to reduce the number of segment cut? Yes, I agree. Each segment is a separate path when importing to a DXF. Yes, it's an issue. I didn't search a lot, but I think if you go to the Inkscape website, they discuss that point, and you have a parameter when you can ask for those segments to be linked. Because Cura software allows Milestone JPEGs to be just dropped in. Truly? I didn't know. You want to do simple 3D prints this way. Oh. For example, a simple rectangle with text of a different shape superimposed can give a quick result. I create this in Inkscape to start with. Oh. Okay, I'll try that one. I didn't know that Inkscape can accept JPEGs. So interesting. Okay. So
I did have another comment.
All right, go ahead.
Sometimes if you have a curve, of course, if you want to cut it, found I would have to go into the part of the menu and add and make straight line segments out of them to get something that would actually cut. I don't. Maybe that was something in the older software. Let's say I had the letter O, and I traced it, and I ended up using the auto trace function, for example, and then I might have to go back in and give the line a thickness and all that sort of thing. I would have a curve, and sometimes I would have to add more points to that O, and then once I had enough points, I would turn them into straight line segments so that I can then send it to the laser cutter, because the laser cutter sometimes didn't like to cut a curve as opposed to a line. I don't know if you've run into that issue before, or if there's something new in the software now where you don't necessarily have to do that.
It never happened to me. I understand what you mean. It does a bit the same as, let's say, in Tinkercad, where it takes a curve and it converts it to a lot of lines because the STL file is only made of triangles. I never had the need to do that in Inkscape, so I don't know about it.
Maybe you don't have to anymore. I mean, it must not be a problem, because it used to be a problem, and we used to have to just go back and make sure everything was a straight line segment. But that was a decade ago, so probably there have been some improvements. So.
It happened in 2000. I was working in a sheet metal shop in 2005. We did have an Amada laser cutter, and it didn't accept basic curves. So we had to convert it to circle arcs or to straight lines. So it was a workaround, but that machine was an industrial one. It never happened to me on our CNC or Trotec laser cutter. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So it was a pleasure, everybody. If one day you go by Rivière-du-Loup, take a stop. You'll see Fab Lab Fabule. You can write it here. Yeah. Fab Lab Fabule. And you send a message and I'll have you visit the place.
Okay, thank you.
Best regards. Bye.